I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Hey everybody, Josh Brown here from Tales from Godric's Hollow. You're listening to the second episode of Muggle Theories. That's right, I'm back this week with another midweek crazy theory and prediction. A couple days ago, we wrapped up recording episode 30 of Tales from Godric's Hollow, and we were covering chapters 17 and 18 of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. A lot of good discussion was going on. There were the two chapters were very impactful. They had a lot of major story plot points revealed and explained. There's still a lot of lingering questions, though. We have 4 chapters left in the book. A lot needs to be explained in these next 4 chapters. Since we got done recording the other night, I've kind of been thinking about it. I've been working some things out in my head. There was one thing I wanted to kind of cover on the episode, but I wasn't sure where I wanted to take it as a theory. And so I've used the last couple days to kind of work that out internally after the fact. And what I want to talk about is Crookshanks, okay? Anybody that's been listening to the show knows that I am absolutely 100% obsessed with figuring out the deal with Crookshanks. I have said adamantly over and over again that Crookshanks is not just a cat. I truly believe that in my heart of hearts, Crookshanks is not a cat at all. Not just a cat. I mean, obviously he's taken the form of a cat body, but there's more to Crookshanks than meets the eye. He's not just a cat. There's too much weird things going on for him to be just a cat. So I've been trying to figure out, like with the big reveal of Moony being Lupin, aka Moony, being a werewolf, with Sirius Black being the dog. We found out that Peter Pettigrew is allegedly Scabbers, the rat. Um, Still don't know who or what Crookshanks would be. So I've been racking my brain, and this was even a question brought into the podcast of who I think Crookshanks could be now. Now that I know it's not Sirius Black, now that I know it's not Lupin, I kind of glanced over the possibility of it being James Potter, which he's supposed to be dead, so that would be weird, especially because he attacked Harry, and the whole thing is just absolutely weird, right? Um, so I've been trying to process in my head who Crookshanks could be. And I just kept running into roadblock after roadblock about characters that I feel we already know, because I don't think they would introduce a character we don't know. So it has to be somebody we've already gotten acquainted with, at least been introduced to, who would be making a return as Crookshanks. Why, and why they are Crookshanks, and that there's a lot going on. But I still firmly believe that Crookshanks is more than just a cat. So I've been thinking, what if Crookshanks is not the transformation of a person, but rather something else? Now, there's been one thing that's kind of lingered throughout this book, been mentioned a few different chapters now, not as frequently as Scabbers and Crookshanks has been, which, I was going on and on about how it seems like every time you turn around, we're talking about Crookshanks and Scabbers, more so than normal pets, and I kind of felt like that was abnormal. But there's another thing that's been going on in this third book of the Harry Potter series, Prisoner of Azkaban, if you will. A reoccurring creature that kind of came from nowhere, has been explained a few different times. We've seen it a few different times, but hasn't really fully been explained as to why it was important we knew about it, especially to the detail that we did, and that's the Boggart. Now, bear with me here. we've seen the Boggarts in Hogwarts. We don't know if it's one or more so. Transform into the things that people are um, afraid of the most, right? So with Neville, the Boggart turned into Snape. We see the Boggart turn into a glowing orb, which turned out to be the moon for Professor Lupin. Snakes and spiders and so on and so forth with different students and such. We know the Boggarts live in unusual places. They kind of like to hide out. And I may be completely wrong here. I may absolutely be completely wrong here. But it seems like the only time we ever see Crookshanks or hear of Crookshanks being around, Scabbers is also around. Now, if Scabbers is more than just a rat, which we have been told at this point Scabbers is more than just a rat, he is in fact Peter Pettigrew, that would mean Peter Pettigrew would have a conscious, he would have the ability to be more than just a rat, right? I don't know necessarily what Peter Pettigrew would be afraid of, but when he's in rat form and he's using a little rat mind and a little rat body, that rat naturally would be the most afraid of a cat. So when going back to when the trio walk into the pet store and they have Ron, has his rat, Scabbers, and he's getting Scabbers checked out, trying to see what's wrong with him. Scabbers is there in the pet shop, and that's when Hermione saw the cat up on the top bookshelf, kind of hiding in a little corner. She saw Crookshanks the cat. Now, do we know for sure that cat had always been there? Or did the visualization of that cat only happen because it was actually a Boggart who transformed into a cat because Scabbers had seen it? It saw Scabbers, and naturally, Scabbers being a rat would be terrified of a cat. So therefore, we get Crookshanks. Okay? We've heard throughout the book that Crookshanks likes to disappear. The kids chalk it up to Scabbers Crookshanks going about the castle doing cat things. Nobody could really account for Crookshanks in a 24/7. So if the kids, specifically Hermione, were to think that Crookshanks was just out and about doing cat things, it's very possible that the Boggart has just turned into something else that we don't know about. Like a Dementor, maybe, for Harry. Or, whatever else that we've seen. It does, I refuse to accept the fact that Crookshanks is just a cat. And I can't place him with any other character, but the Boggart is just sticking out in my mind as something that we've learned a lot about for no particular reason. So if Crookshanks is a Boggart, that would make sense because Peter Pettigrew, aka Scabbers the rat, would be terrified of it. We only see Crookshanks when Scabbers is around. We could assume that when Harry saw Crookshanks out in the field talking to the dog, aka Sirius Black, that it was on the hunt for Scabbers the rat. So theoretically, it could still keep the form of Crookshanks, because as I understand it, other people could see it in the form, like when Professor Lupin used it in the classroom to turn into Snape for Neville. Everybody saw Snape, so it's not like it turns into the thing that everybody is afraid of. It focuses on one person, one living being, and turns into the thing that's most afraid of, and everybody else sees that thing. They don't see it individually as the things that they're afraid of unless it turns its attention on them. So it would totally make sense that other people would see Crookshanks in the form of a cat because he is a cat around Scabbers, who's deathly afraid of cats, as he should be, because he's a rat. So that's kind of the theory I'm working on. Like, I other than that, I mean, I would just have to accept the fact that Crookshanks is just a cat, and I can't do that. I cannot consciously feel good about that decision. Again, I may be completely wrong here. I may be absolutely, completely nuts, but it just makes sense how J.K. likes to write for Crookshanks the cat to actually be a boggart, which would turn into a cat because Scabbers the rat would be most afraid of a cat. That's my theory. Also, Matt has pointed out on the podcast before that we never saw what Hermione was most afraid of. I'm curious about that also, and I wonder if that plays into what she's doing with her schoolwork and how she's able to take so many classes. Like, to me, the only thing that Hermione would be afraid of would be failure. So I don't know how she would see that representation via a boggart. But that's kind of fascinating. I don't know where that's going to lead to, but I feel like there's something there that Matt kind of dropped a hint at that I should be thinking about. But at this point, I'm just more curious about Crookshanks than I am Hermione's deal. So that's my theory. That's my Muggle theory of the week. I guess we'll have to wait for chapters 19 and 20 to find out what the deal is with Crookshanks. If that, hopefully, we get to know in the next 2 chapters. I'm not really sure yet, but we'll see. So yeah, Crookshanks the cat equals a boggart. Am I right? Am I close? Am I completely and utterly wrong? There's a possibility. I look forward to finding out more on episode 31 of Tales from Godric's Hollow, when we read chapters 19 and 20 of Book 3, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Until then, Muggle out.
Mischief managed.